evening with Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which is not found in your prayer book. So we are going to go ahead and switch to the words, which you'll find right here. Grant.
Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadadai, Yadadai, Yadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. And you must build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, 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 then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai.
ליבי, אליך עמדה 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 ליבי. חוסנה ואל נא תתעלם, חוסנה ואל נא תתעלם, חוסנה ואל נא תתעלם. אלך עמדה, אלך עמדה ליבי, 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 אלך עמדה ליבי. חוסנה ואל נא תתעלם, חוסנה ואל נא תתעלם.
And now if you have your candles, I invite you to go ahead and prepare to light them. And we'll do that, and Courtney hopefully will, or Grant will be doing the candle blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And we now turn together to Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamu v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el ha'miuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litehila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat nechobel nechar, Ki mekol habracha, Merosh mikadem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Yitoreri, Ki va'orech kumi ori, uri shechaberi, Kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom b'teret kala, Gam b'simcha uvtzola, Tochem b'nei sigula, Boi chala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Vitkadal Shemir Rabbah, Be'alma divrach yotev yamlich malchutev, B'chai echon u'vyom echon, U'chayed kol bet Yisrael. Bagala, U'vizman kariv, V'yimeru.
Amen. Yesh Rabba
Mevarach, Ve'ala mulal ve'almaya, Yitbarach, V'shtabach, Yitbahar v'dramam v'yitnaseh, V'yithalal, Shemid Kudeshah. Hela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'imaru. Amen.
We now continue with the words of Baruch Hu. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yada-da-da-da, 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 Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Le'olam Va'ed Yadidai Yadidai Dai Dai 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 Yadidai Dai Dai.
We continue on page 30 or on your screen in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim v'chokhmah poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir umevi layla Umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, Tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And on the top of page 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated if you were standing. We continue together with the Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarata b'han v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lektecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'bumecha ופשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
The words for Mi Chamocha can be found on page 40.
tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Ma'alchutecha ra'u v'anecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
We continue together with Yismechu.
Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshi Shvi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbou, Veitangu Mitu Vecha Shabbat, Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemdad yamim oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר Nase Bereshit Shabbat, Yismechu V'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat V'korei Oneg Shabbat, Yismechu V'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat V'korei Oneg Shabbat.
We turn together to page 46 or the words on your screen, and if you are able, we ask that you please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agit ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Omer Chasadim Tovim V'konei Hakol V'zocher Chazei Avot V'Imaot U'mevig Geulah Livnei Bneihem Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Hozeh U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחלקי לחיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו איש ימי עפר ויחמוך בעל גבורות ומרומך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונעמה נתן לחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue on the top of 55 for the words on your screen. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Ritzei, Ritzei, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, ve'amacha Yisrael, u'tefilatam, ve'ahava tekabel, u'te'il ratzon tamid, u'te'il ratzon tamid, avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha, v'yirah navod, she'otecha levadcha, v'yirah navod.
We turn now at the top of page 59. God of goodness, We give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all this, for all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulacha na'el lechodot.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We now take a moment for our own silent prayers of our hearts.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי וגואלי וגואלי. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי וגואלי וגואלי.
So this week's Torah portion comes from Parshat Korach. It starts out telling us that Korach, Datan, Aviram, On, and 250 other essentially respectable protesters come before Moses and say, Moses, you've gone too far. All of the community is holy, all of them. God is among all of them. Rhetoric that kind of sounds a little familiar? Yeah. Rabbis didn't have to look too far to find a connection between this week's Torah portion and what's going on in our world today. This portion's full of valuable lessons, many of which I've taught before since it's one of our summer portions that often falls during camp. But those lessons didn't seem as applicable or as prominent in need of today. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found that Rabbi Mira Wasserman directs us to a Mishnah that comes from the Tanchuma, a Midrash that comes from Tanchuma, that looks at this debate between Moses and Korach and tries to say, what is it that Moses and Korach are really debating about? And so the Tanchuma imagines, well, let's look at the connection between this week's portion and last week's. Last week's ends with the mitzvah of ritual fringes, and that our ritual fringes should have a specific thread of a specific hue called techelet in Hebrew. We're just going to call it blue today for the sake of being in English. But that in the fringes of the talit, we should have this string of techelet, this string of blue. And it sort of imagines Moses and Korach in a Beit Midrash, in a study hall. And so Moses is teaching the halakha, this Jewish law, and Korach says to Moses, so here I've got a fun case for you. And I'm paraphrasing the Midrash extensively here to make it more of a story. And so Korach says to Moses, as rabbis do, here's a really obscure case. What if I had a talit that was made of entirely techelet, that was entirely blue? Do I really need to put fringes with this special string on it? The whole thing is made of strings of blue. And Moses responds back, God says we need a string of techelet on the fringe. And the Midrash goes on using another example of a house full of Torah scrolls doesn't need a mezuzah, and the argumentation is the same line of thought. So let's take a look at Korach's argument. In both cases, you have something smaller, the strings on the talit, or the portions of the Shema and Ve'ahavta that are in the mezuzah, that are a smaller portion of something bigger. The strings on the talit and the passages of Torah that are in the mezuzah to the whole Torah. So Korach seems to be arguing, if I've got the whole thing that more than meets the requirement, why do I have to follow this specific detail? If I've got lots of strings of blue, I've got lots of passages of Torah, why do I need these specific ones in a specific place? And so it seems on face value that Korach is giving a valid rabbinic argument. Trust me, I've been doing Daf Yomi. These are the kind of absurd cases that the Talmud loves to come up with and argue about. But we know from the continuation of the portion that Korach's argument is not accepted. And in fact, the earth ends up swallowing him and all his friends up. If you want to get God saying, yeah, no, that's about as clear as you get. So what is it that's going wrong with Korach? And in other places, I've taught that it's how he came before Moses. But this Midrash has us look at what he's saying and what is he trying to argue. And it seems if we take his argument that something small, how is it that something small could possibly be more important than the larger whole? How is it that this little strand of blue could be more important than the entire talit that's made of blue? How is it that these passages of Torah that are included in the mezuzah can be more important than a house full of Torah that has more Torah? And as I look at our world today, there's some degree of controversy over the Black Lives Matter movement. And so there are some, especially on social media, that have tried to respond with, but all lives matter. And in essence, that's what Korach is saying. We're all holy. And if we take his parallel from the mezuzah and from the talit to the community, he's basically saying, why are you and Aaron, why are you, Moses and Aaron, more important than the rest of us? We're all leaders. Remember, we were told at the beginning they're respectable leaders of the community. So why is it that you get a say over everything and we don't? Why is it that Black Lives Matter and the rest of us don't? And I think what this portion teaches us is it's not that all lives don't matter. They do. But right now, and Judaism loves the details, it's the details. It's this specific element that is important. And I think for us, as we look at our world and we look at various communities and subsets of our communities that are going through a difficult experience, who are treated differently, that it is our duty to lift them up, to make them stand out the same way that if I put that blue string of techelet on my shirt, on a white shirt, it's going to stand out. If I put that techelet on a talit that is all that same shade of blue, are you going to notice it? And remember, the whole thing with the commandment is that you should see them and remember the commandments and do them, to the point where our tradition even teaches a person who is blind is supposed to wear a talit because other people will see them. And that's a whole nother aspect, that the mezuzah goes on the outside of your house. So even if you've got 20 Torahs on the inside, you're not showing anything to somebody walking down the street. If your techelet isn't standing out on your talit, you're not going to notice the fringes if they're the same color. So there's this idea of lifting things up. And so if we look at our community, there are people that we need to help lift up. And we can sit back and say, I'm not a racist, or I'm not against the LGBT community, or I'm not against insert a minority group here. And I think what this portion is telling us is that's not enough. That we need to be able to lift those voices up actively, because we need to pay attention to the details. It's not that the other portions in the Torah aren't important. They're just not the point of the mezuzah. It's not that the other strands in the talit aren't important. It's that they aren't the purpose of the mitzvah of the fringes. All lives matter. Judaism clearly teaches that. And I could give you a whole slew of teachings that come from our tradition to make that point. But I can also give you a whole slew of teachings from our tradition about doing justice and seeking justice and doing the right and doing the good, that tell us to go beyond the letter of the law, that tell us to go be above and beyond. Korach, in a lot of ways, we have similarities to him. I give this drash as a person who is white, as a person who is in a socioeconomic status that gives me a lot of privilege, as a person who's been able to attain a high degree of education. I have a lot of privilege, but I need to speak from that to lift up people who do not. So we can be like Korach and say, but we all matter. Or we can be like Moses and Aaron that says, yeah, but this specific thing matters right now. We need to raise others up. We need to focus on what's broken in our systems, to ally for a group that is treated unjustly. So this Shabbat, my prayer to you is that we are able to direct our attention to the urgent particulars in our lives. And if you want to hear that in terms of Black Lives Matter, or in terms of this being Pride Month, so be it. If you want to hear that in terms of other things, maybe you have a friend or neighbor that's been sick, maybe something else is going on, there are certainly urgent particulars that we can focus on right now. This Shabbat, may we be able to do something to make a difference. Whether it's a teeny tiny thing or a big difference, it doesn't matter. Go out and make a difference in the world. This Shabbat, may we try and diminish that Korach-like voice and behavior within us and trade them in for more productive and just actions. And that is my wish for you this Shabbat.
Yishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu, Mishivarech V'Rapeh et Hacholim. May the one who has blessed and kept our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, May that God, this God of our people, continue to bring healing to all who are in need of healing. And may God continue to bring healing to our broken world. At this time, we think of Gail Russick, Danica, Marcus, and Carter, Ezra Melech ben Rachel Sarah, Mike Ammons, Helen Fine, Jeremy Wise, Paul Levine, Ed Bolin, Harvey Olson, Christine Wagner, Candace Smith, Tracy Huddleston, Joe McKenna, Ellen Goodrich, Mark Romanowski, Jerry McDonald, Richard Lieberman, Joel Pinsker, Marty Sacker, Sandy Sapphire, Laura Holtzinger-Levin, Avraham ben Avraham Masara, Sidel Ballas, Bob and Gert Kahn, Dave Bussey, Ron Levine, Lorraine Kotler, Emily November, Gail November, Maxine Rubin, Jay Bainbridge, Chelsea Smith, Shava Eta, Evan Glenn, Eric Weibel, Ruth Hirsch, Rory Freisler, David Arkin, Bernice Brandt, and Deborah Seidel. We pray, O God, that you may bring healing to all in our heart who perhaps are not named as we consider the words before us with the words of Misha Berach, Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisher beirach imotenu mekor habracha amotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We now look to the words of for Aleinu, which can be found on your screen or on page 282 of your prayer book.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגרי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם גלגנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated if you'd like. At this time, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. At this time, we think of our loved ones who have died more recently. We are in a period of Shloshim for Maury Summer, Ellen Rosenthal, Ivan Zawatsky, and Betty Chernick. We're also observing the yahrzeits for Ruth Bergman, Eva Bremer, Bertha Bruckfeld, Paris Burt, Audrey Cook, Arthur Emhoff, Jenny Evans, Pat Evans, Stanley Frank, Aaron Freed, Jacob Friesom, Janice Eisenberger Globinger, Ruth Goldstein, Charles R. Goldswig, Abraham Goodman, Gerald A. Green, William B. Israel, Mose N. Jacobs, Lillian Manhai Lanzett, Thelma Law, Mark Launer, Jack Leet, Emma Bierman Levine, Arthur J. Margolis, Jack Moss, Esther Elaine Neiman, Fanny Nierenberg, Benedict Olch, Ada Levinson Perelson, Elizabeth Rickenbach, Matilda Rosenthal, Gail Ruda, Ida Weprin, and Frederick Wolf. And to this, we include all of the names of our loved ones that you may speak aloud or in your heart, and if necessary, to pronounce more correctly than we've just done. And I invite all who are in mourning or who are remembering to please rise first, if you are able. And we as a community will also rise if we are able. As we recite their names, we think of the words now of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chiroteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'ha'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah Mivarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal, Shemei dekudja berichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing. Amen.
And if you have a cup of a fruit of the vine, please join me in the Kiddush, and it can also be found on your screen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav beratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'bratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'ma'aseh v'reshit. Ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu b'chata, ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodecha ve'ahava u'ratzon hilchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
I don't know if anyone else has a challah, but as you know, my children have been making challah on Friday. Today I get to try a funnel cake challah, which if I thought chocolate and vanilla was good last week, I can't imagine that this is going to be bad. So for all of you who don't have funnel cake challah, I'll let you know how it is, and if it's great, I'll make you some. But in the meantime, everybody else grab your challah.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
It's interesting. I don't know that I'll be sharing the recipe, but it's very good. I really like vanilla and chocolate. You all are welcome to get off mute if you just want to say Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see you all. So glad that you were able to join us. And Rabbi Sova, thank you for an inspiring and meaningful Devar Torah, as always. Thank you. And Grant?
This was lovely. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a good week.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
It was a
Shabbat
lovely
Shalom.
service. Thank you.